Welcome to Awakening Streams, the podcast of One River Zen Meditation Center in Ottawa, Illinois. Hosted by Sensei Michael Brunner. Learn more, donate, and practice with us at oneriverzen.org.
You know, retreat isn't easy. When we step into a retreat, we're choosing intentionally to strip away our distractions, let go of our routines, let go of the roles, the characters that we play. You'll see them all trying to do a cameo while you're on the cushion, right? But we have to kind of just let them do their thing and ask ourselves, is that so? So the idea here is we're beginning to let go of the usual patterns that keep us bound. Patterns that are so embedded in our lives that we actually lose sight of them. We're not even aware that we're walking through the maze of the deluded self a lot of the time. In the space of retreat, we actually do begin to recognize how those karmic binds hold us. When we're sitting here and we're being quiet, we can actually bear witness to the habitual thoughts, to the habitual reactions, and to the stories that shape our lived experience when we're walking in delusion. And it keeps us in this whole cycle of very familiar suffering. Retreat's powerful because it's a container for seeing. When we're away from our usual world, over time, our karmic momentum begins to slow down a little bit. Our mind begins to quiet down, and we see how deeply these habits run. Now, all these habits come forward and present themselves before us. You don't have to invite them. They'll show up. And we give them opportunity to watch them arise and pass without feeding them, without serving them tea. And in this stillness, some hope emerges. A recognition that we don't have to follow these patterns. We don't have to react to the small self that clings to fear, that clings to doubt, or the ever-present shame. And this is where retreat becomes a powerful tool for liberation. So we call retreat in our tradition sesshin. Sesshin just means touching the heart-mind, or in a way of gathering our attention with intention and synchronizing our intentions with our actual lived experience. Of course, we see a lot of meditation. We do a lot of unfamiliar practice. Chant a lot of sutras that we've never heard before. But that's not really the point. The point is how we turn inward and we allow ourselves, to meet our busy mind directly. In sesshin, distractions begin to fall away, and we engage with the present moment. A lot of times when we sit on that cushion and things get quiet, that present moment is our discursive mind. And we can see exactly how it likes to function. What do we do when a thought comes up? It's like a big train, right? We like to hop on, ride it wherever it's going to go, only we know the destinations a lot of the time. But once we let go of all that, we encounter the clear, vast nature of our actual true self. Once we face that inner landscape with honesty, we find the strength to let go and move beyond those limitations that have held us back. Sesshin is both a challenge and a gift. Although it may not seem that way in the early stages of our sesshin, it's a gift. To see ourselves, our small selves, for who they really are, so we can set it off to the side and encounter our true nature, the much bigger one who's present. It's a rare opportunity to see the truth that's within us and without us. So in Zen practice, we use koans, and they're tools that break us out of our conventional thinking. We always have a temptation to fall back on reason, to fall back on what we know, to fall back on what's familiar. And when we do that, we often can't see what's directly in front of us. So a koan can't be solved with the intellect. Their stories are challenges that are beyond understanding in that way. When we sit with a koan and we drop away our logic, we step beyond the mind's endless analyzing, and we enter a direct experience of where that koan is pointing. They help us see beyond the trappings of what we call the small self, beyond our conditioning, and touch something that's real. Each koan is like a doorway, a chance to wake up to our true nature, if we're willing to fully engage and let the koan work on us. The Sansheki-shu, right, or collection of stone and sand, is a classic Zen text that's compiled by Zen master Muju back in the 13th century. Like many Zen anthologies, it gathers stories, teachings, and encounters from a variety of sources. And it gives you an idea about the depth and variety of Zen practice throughout all the ages. They're like a time capsule. But before you think that these old and dusty stories don't apply to your life today, I think you're going to find that your conceptual notion of time as being something that's progressed so far, it just isn't so. The way we construct a self, the way we use this self, the way we cling to a self, the way we become deluded, is timeless. Yeah. So we're going to have some unsettled thoughts when we work through them, and we're going to be challenged in a way that's uncomfortable. But we need to recognize that this practice is not confined to this cushion or this temple or any monastery. Yeah. But it's actually to be embodied in the experience of your daily life. So the story I want to talk to you about in the Sansheki-shu is the second case. It's called Finding a Diamond on a Muddy Road. The case goes like this. Gudo was the emperor's teacher of his time. Nevertheless, he used to travel around as a wandering mendicant. Once, when he was on his way to Edo, which was a cultural and political center of the shogunate, he approached a little village maid named Tatenka. It was evening, and there was a heavy rain falling, and Gudo was very wet. So his straw sandals were actually starting to fall apart. He was passing a farmhouse near the village, and he noticed 4 or 5 pairs of sandals in a window, and he decided to buy some more. So the woman who offered him the sandals, seeing how wet he was, invited him to actually remain the night in her home. It was traditional in those days. And Gudo accepted by thanking her. So he entered and recited the sutra before the family shrine, and then he was introduced to the woman's mother and in order to her children as well. And it didn't take much sleuthing for him to observe that the family was very depressed. And so Gudo asked, "What's wrong?" "My husband is a gambler and a drunkard," the housewife told him. "When he happens to win, he drinks and becomes abusive. When he loses, he borrows money from others. Sometimes, when he becomes thoroughly drunk, he doesn't come home at all. What can I do?" "I will help him," said Gudo. "Here's some money. Get me a gallon of fine wine and something good to eat." Doesn't sound like a good solution, but we'll roll with it, right? "Then you may retire. I'll meditate before the shrine." When the man of the house returned that night, around midnight, he was drunk. And he bellowed, "Hey wife, I'm home. Do you have something for me to eat?" "I have something for you," said Gudo. "I happen to be caught in the rain. Your wife kindly asked me to remain here for the night. In return, I have some wine and some fish. You may as well have them." The man was delighted. He drank the wine at once and laid himself down on the floor. Gudo sat in meditation beside him. In the morning, when the husband awoke, he'd forgotten about the previous night. So he looked at Gudo and said, "Who are you? Where do you come from?" And Gudo was still meditating, but he broke his silence to say, "I'm Gudo of Kyoto, and I'm going on to Edo." The man was utterly ashamed because he recognized that was the Zen teacher of the emperor who was sitting here in his humble abode. Gudo smiled. He said, everything in this life is impermanent. Life is very brief. If you keep on gambling and drinking, you'll have no time left to accomplish anything else. And you'll cause your family to suffer in the process as well. The perception of the husband awoke, as if from a dream. You're right, he declared. How can I ever repay you for this wonderful teaching? Let me see you off and carry your things a little way. If you wish, assented Gudo. The two started out. After they'd gone 3 miles, Gudo said, return, go back. Just another 5 miles, he said to Gudo. They continued on. After 5 miles, Gudo said, you can return now. After another 10 miles, Gudo said, no, the man replied. They walked another 10, Gudo said, you can turn back now. He said, I'm going to follow you for the rest of my life. All modern Zen teachers in Japan sprang from lineage of a famous master who was a successor of Gudo. His name was Munan, which means the man who never turned back. So in this story, we meet a man, right, who's lost in his own suffering. A gambler, a drinker, someone trapped in the habits that create endless pain for himself and for his family. Then Gudo enters his life, soaked from the rain, but humble, without judgment. Gudo doesn't lecture him or shame him. He meets the man precisely where he's at, offering his presence, not making demands. And in that quiet presence, he gives that man a glimpse of something much bigger, something beyond the cycle of pain that he's been spinning in. The story isn't about two people from another time and another place. It's about you. Within each of you is Gudo. Within each of you is that master. Also within you is a smaller self. You give that one a name. You judge that one a lot. Yeah? You're very critical of that one. And so that one's really never allowed to emerge and take on his mantle as the master that he really is. The bigger one, that's your true self. And if you don't awaken to it, if you don't rise to follow it, no one else can do it for you. This is it, folks. There's no dress rehearsal. And you're the one. If it's going to happen, you're going to be the one to do it. But how do you do it? It sounds easy enough, right? How do you do this? How do you let go of that small self and allow your true nature, your inner master, to take the lead? The answer, to a large extent, lies in the quality of your awareness. But we could also talk about it in terms of conceptual notions of maybe some keys. Yeah? Honesty. Honesty with yourself. Open-mindedness. Willingness. These aren't words. They're not even just ideas. This is a complete state of mind that we're talking about. It takes honesty for us to see ourselves as we really are, to be willing to recognize when we're living from the small self, to actually see our habits and our actions clearly. Not just the impact that they have on what we call ourselves, but how they ripple out in time and space and impact everyone. Yeah? Honesty means looking at those patterns we've created, looking at the thoughts that hold us back, and admitting when we've been letting our habit energy run the show. Do we do that from time to time? Ever? I know it happens all the time to me. This isn't about judgment. It's about clarity. If you think awakening doesn't also include delusion, then how clear could it possibly be? This is about everything being included. This is about having the honesty to see very clearly that sometimes we don't see very clearly. Honesty helps us wake up to the ways we've been holding ourselves back. And when we do that, the capacity for transformation opens up. When we talk about open-mindedness, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, right? When we all arrived at retreat. Talked about maybe it being what Dogen would call fue, not understanding, right? Or not knowing. Or living from a state of wonder. But to awaken to our true nature, we have to be willing to open our mind to the possibility that there's something far bigger than the story we tell ourselves about who we are. And we've all mentioned that from time to time, we recognize that the trance of the small self breaks. Things don't happen the way we expect them to. We realize, oh shoot, maybe this formula that I've constantly been repeating myself about 1 + 1 = 2, it's just that. It's just some kind of thought. We have to be able to look past the story we tell ourselves about our limitations, about who we are, and to be willing to consider ourselves as vast, boundless, and all-impactful. When we talk about our actions impacting everyone else in the world, we have to recognize they do. Everyone else to the four corners of the universe. Which means that your nature is at least that big, yeah? That's where your actions will reach. Yeah. The true master within you is beyond any of those labels, any of those judgments, any of those ideas, beyond any of your expectations, beyond any of your dreams about what it might look like. Yeah? And it's waiting to guide you. But it needs you to be open, to let go of your old ways of seeing yourself, and seeing other for that matter. And finally, it's about willingness. Putting our own self on the line. Willingness is where that real transformation happens. It's the decision to take the step, even when you have no idea where it's going to lead. Yeah? And when we live in this place of open-mindedness, we don't know. We stop practicing from a perspective of a goal, where we're looking to get somewhere, and we live from an intention to address all of the suffering that presents itself moment by moment, to be available to it, right? To not cling to some idea of what we think awakening or enlightenment is, but to actually just stop and see the wisdom as it presents itself now, and through suffering, and walk into that suffering and transform it. That activity is awakening, not some thought about what you have about the activity. Willingness is the courage to say, yes, I'm going to follow the path. I don't know where it's going to go. But that's beside the point. Yeah? To let the bigger one in you come forward. But more importantly, to show up again and again and again. No matter how many times you stumble. No matter how many times you nod off. Yeah? You just, shake it off and come right back. Yeah? Each step is that freedom. It doesn't bring you closer to the freedom. You're embodying that freedom. There's a phrase we sometimes say in Zen, right? And it sounds disturbing to some people. We say, if you see the Buddha on the road, kill him. If there's some outside ideal that you have about how things are supposed to be about, or about someone who's going to come to pull you out of the mess that you find yourself in, you've missed it. Awakening doesn't come from anyone else. Not Gudo, not some old teacher, no book. The real teacher, that real awakened one, is present within you. If you keep looking outside for someone else to lead the way for you, you're going to miss the most important truth, that your true nature is the master, and that it's present in all of your lived circumstances. There's nothing inside and outside. You don't have to wait for some ideal moment or for everything to align so that you can actually now become awake. In the midst of the hardest circumstances you find yourself in, if you're just actualized by those circumstances, if you just walk into that suffering and manifest with an intention of compassion, that's the action of awakening. Yeah? This path isn't about fixing yourself. It's about seeing beyond that idea you have of yourself and letting your vast nature take hold. You start to realize that this master within you is real, and it's been waiting all along to grant freedom for you and for everything and everyone else you encounter. But here's the thing, if you don't awaken to that master within, if you don't let it lead the way, then no one will. No one will. Yeah. Is there suffering in the world? Yeah. There's a lot of it, yeah. The world needs you to wake up. It needs you on this path, not just for your own peace. But this notion of awakening goes far beyond you. You need to make peace with the idea that if you don't wake up, no one does. Yeah, that changes the perspective a little bit, doesn't it? That ups the stakes just a touch. Yeah. Gudo didn't drag that man to the end of his journey, did he? He walked willingly. Yeah, followed that one. Yeah. You have the same choice. You can say, I'm going to follow this path. I'm going to awaken to that master within. And I'm going to break others free too. This is your moment. Your moment to see beyond the small self, to recognize this true nature. This is your path. This is your life. This is your chance to make a difference. So let honesty guide you to see yourself clearly. And open-mindedness help you to recognize there's more within you than you ever imagined. Then finally, approach the path with willingness to be the fire that propels you forward step by step. Yeah. And embody this life, this lived experience that's right before you. That's the life that you are meant to lead. Appreciate your life, the one you have, not the one that you hope you'll have someday when you're a perfect person. You can find the perfection right here, right now, when you embrace the situation as it is and you walk into the circumstances as they present themselves. You can be the hero of your own life. You're the one who has to make it happen. This is it. Yeah. And when you follow, you bring healing to everyone you touch. Step forward and let that bigger one within you lead the way. Yeah. I expect all of you will succeed that great master Gudo, right? And never turn back.
Thank you for joining us. If this podcast was meaningful for you and supported your practice, please give us a hand by visiting us at oneriverzen.org today.